Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. Chapter 1. I felt her fear before I heard her screams. Her nightmare pulsed into me, shaking me out of my own dream, which had had something to do with the beach and some hot guy rubbing suntan oil on me. Images, hers, not mine, tumbled through my mind, fire and blood, the smell of smoke, the twisted metal of a car. The pictures wrapped around me, suffocating me, until some rational part of my brain reminded me that this wasn't my dream. I woke up strands of long dark hair sticking to my forehead. Lisa lay in her bed, gashing and screaming. I bolted out of mine, quickly crossing the few feet that separated us. "Liz," I said, shaking her. "Liz, wake up!" Her screams dropped off, replaced by soft whimpers. "Andre," she moaned. "Oh, God." I helped her sit up. "Liz, you aren't there anymore. Wake up." After a few moments, her eyes fluttered open, and in the dim light, I could see a flicker of consciousness start to take over. Her frantic breathing slowed, and she leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. I put an arm around her and ran a hand over her hair. "It's okay," I told her gently. "Everything's okay. I had that dream." "Yeah, I know." We sat like that for several minutes, not saying anything else. When I felt her emotions calm down, I leaned over to the nightstand between our beds and turned on the lamp. It glowed dimly, but neither of us really needed much to see by. Attracted by the light, our housemate's cat, Oscar, leapt up onto the sill of the open window. He gave me a wide berth. Animals don't like dampers, for whatever reason, but jumped onto the bed and rubbed his head against Lisa, purring softly. Animals didn't have a problem with Maury, and they all loved Lisa in particular. Smiling, she scratched his chin, and I felt her calm further. When did we last do a feeding?" I asked, studying her face. Her skin was paler than usual. Dark circles hung under her eyes, and there was an air of furry about her. School had been hectic this week, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd given her blood. "It's been like more than 2 days, hasn't it? 3? Why didn't you say anything?" She shrugged and wouldn't meet my eyes. "You were busy. I didn't want to." "Screw that," I said, shifting into a better position. No wonder she seemed so weak. Oscar, not wanting me any closer, leapt down and returned to the window where he could watch us at a safe distance. "Come on, let's do this." "Rose." "Come on. It'll make you feel better." I tilted my head and tossed my hair back, baring my neck. I saw her hesitate, but the side of my neck and what it offered proved too powerful. A hungry expression crossed her face, and her lips parted slightly, exposing the fangs she normally kept hidden while living among humans. Those fangs contrasted oddly with the rest of her features. With her pretty face and pale blonde hair, she looked more like an angel than a vampire. As her teeth neared my bare skin, I felt my heart race with a mix of fear and anticipation. I always hated the latter, but it was nothing I could help, a weakness I couldn't shake. Her fangs bit into me hard, and I cried out at the brief flare of pain, then it faded, replaced by a wonderful golden joy that spread through my body. It was better than any of the times I'd been drunk or high. Better than sex, or so I imagined, since I'd never done it. It was a blanket of pure, refined pleasure, wrapping me up and promising everything would be right in the world. On and on it went. The chemicals in her saliva triggered an endorphin rush, and I lost track of the world, lost track of who I was. Then, regretfully, it was over. It had taken less than a minute. She pulled back, wiping her hand across her lips as she studied me. "You okay?" Yeah. I lay back on the bed, dizzy from the blood loss. "I just need to sleep it off. I'm fine." Her pale jade-green eyes watched me with concern. She stood up. "I'm going to get you something to eat." My protest came awkwardly to my lips, and she left before I could get out a sentence. The buzz from her bite had lessened as soon as she broke the connection, but some of it still lingered in my veins, and I felt a goofy smile cross my lips. Turning my head, I glanced up at Oscar, still sitting in the window. "You don't know what you're missing," I told him. His attention was on something else. Hunkering down into a crouch, he puffed out his jet black fur. His tail started twitching. My smile faded, and I forced myself to sit up. The world spun, and I waited for it to right itself before trying to stand. When I managed it, the dizziness set in again, and this time refused to leave. Still, I felt okay enough to stumble to the window and peer out with Oscar. He eyed me warily, scooted over a little, and then returned to whatever held his attention. A warm breeze, unseasonably warm for a Portland fall, played with my hair as I leaned out. The street was darker and relatively quiet. It was 3 a.m, just about the only time a college campus settled down, at least somewhat. The house in which we'd rented a room for the past 8 months sat on a residential street with old, mismatched houses. Across the road, a street light flickered, nearly ready to burn out. It still cast enough light for me to make out the shapes of cars and buildings in our own yard. I could see the silhouettes of trees and bushes, and a man watching me. I jerked back in surprise. A figure stood by a tree in the yard, about 30 feet away, and where he could easily see through the window. He was close enough that I probably could have thrown something and hit him. He was certainly close enough that he could have seen what Lisa and I had just done. The shadows covered him so well that even with my hiding sight, I couldn't make out any of his features, save for his height. He was tall, really tall. He stood there for just a moment, barely discernible, and then stepped back, disappearing into the shadows cast by the trees on the far side of the yard. I was pretty sure I saw someone else move nearby and join him before the blackness swallowed them both. Whoever these figures were, Oscar didn't like them. Not counting me, he usually got along with most people, growing upset only when someone posed an immediate danger. The guy outside hadn't done anything threatening to Oscar, but the cat had sensed something that put him on the edge. Something similar to what he always sensed in me. Icy fear raced through me, almost but not quite eroding the lovely bliss of Lisa's bite. Backing up from the window, I jerked on a pair of jeans that I found on the floor, nearly falling over in the process. Once they were on, I grabbed my coat and Lisa's along with our wallets. Shoving my feet into the first shoes I saw, I headed out the door. Downstairs, I found her in the cramped kitchen, rummaging through the refrigerator. One of our housemates, Jeremy, sat at the table, hand on his forehead as he stared sadly at a calculus book. Lisa regarded me with a surprise. "You shouldn't be up. We have to go now." Her eyes widened, and then a moment later, understanding clicked in. Are you sure?" I nodded. I can't explain how I knew for sure. I just did. Jeremy watched us curiously. "What's wrong?" An idea came to mind. "Let's get his car keys." He looked back and forth between us. "What are you?" Liz unhesitatingly walked over to him. Her fear poured into me through our psychic bond. But there was something else, too. Her complete faith that I would take care of everything. That we would be safe. Like always, I hoped I was worthy of that kind of trust. She smiled broadly and gazed directly into his eyes for a moment. Jeremy just stared, still confused, and then I saw the thrall seize him. His eyes glazed over, and he regarded her adoringly. "We needed to borrow your car," she said in a gentle voice. "Where are your keys?" He smiled, and I shivered. I had a high resistance to compulsion, but I could still feel its effects when it was directed at another person. And I had been taught my entire life that using it was wrong. Reaching into his pocket, Jeremy handed over a set of keys, hanging on a large red keychain. "Thank you," said Lisa. "And where is it parked?" "Down the street," he said dreamily. "At the corner by Brown, 4 blocks away." "Thank you," she repeated, backing up. "As soon as we leave, I want you to go back to studying. Forget you ever saw us tonight." He nodded obediently. I got the impression he would have walked off a cliff for her right then if she'd asked. All humans were susceptible to compulsion, but Jeremy appeared weaker than most. That came in handy right now. "Come on," I told her. "We gotta move." We stepped outside, heading toward the corner he'd named. I was still dizzy from the bite and kept stumbling, unable to move as quickly as I wanted. Lisa had to catch hold of me a few times to stop me from falling. All the time, that anxiety rushed into me from her mind. I tried my best to ignore it. I had my own fears to deal with. "Rose, what are we going to do if they catch us?" she whispered. "They won't," I said fiercely. "I won't let them." "But if they found us?" "They found us before. They didn't catch us then. We'll just drive over to the train station and go to LA. They'll lose us on the trail." I made it sound simple. I always did. Even though there was nothing simple about being on the run from people we'd grown up with. We'd been doing it for 2 years, hiding wherever we could and just trying to finish high school. Our senior year had just started, and living on a college campus had seemed safe. We were so close to freedom. She said nothing more, and I felt her faith in me surge up once more. This was the way it had always been between us. I was the one who took action, who made sure things happened, sometimes recklessly so. She was the more reasonable one, the one who thought things out and researched them extensively before acting. Both styles had their uses, but at the moment, recklessness was called for. We didn't have time to hesitate. Lisa and I had been best friends ever since kindergarten, when our teacher had paired us together for writing lessons, forcing 5-year-olds to spell Vasilis Dragomir and Rosemary Hathaway was beyond cruel, and I'd respond appropriately. I chucked my book at our teacher and called her a fascist bastard. I hadn't known what those words meant, but I'd known how to hit a moving target.